Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So our good buddy Cyril Mikalenko over at the Bucks County Beacon's got a new piece out, and this is something we've been talking about, well, for some time now. This idea that we're gonna allow the right wing to ban a bunch of books and attack schools and destroy libraries. Pennsylvania, congratulations, my state of Pennsylvania. You're in second place. I know, working hard to get the number one, take on Texas. But as Cyril points out, the new Penn America piece gives PA the second spot jockeying for number one. They point out that across the districts here, over 456 books have been banned in 9 school districts. And they're saying, look, the big moneyed interests who are shoving this down our throats, this is a national movement of people who are trying to get parents all worked up to attack their public schools and hate their teachers. And I actually had someone tell me the other day that, the kindergarten teachers, they're indoctrinating our kids because they got an agenda. I'm going, I know kindergarten teachers. They're great people. They're not doing what you're saying. Do you know any of them? And the answer is no. And here to share some thoughts on, well, just how crazy this has gotten and maybe some thoughts behind why. I've asked Randi Weingarten to come talk with us. Randi is the president of the American Federation of Teachers, AFT, AFT.org, their website. Randi, thanks for taking time for us.
Of course.
So I'm seeing this report in this Penn America piece, not new. We've seen this stuff going on for some time now. We've heard politically the right wing spinning the CRT, this theory about race that, oh my God, it's critical, to get people all afraid and again, hating public education, hating their teacher, and not knowing why. Tell me what's going on.
So one of the architects of this, I'll use his own words. He was at one of these evangelical colleges a couple of weeks ago, and he said that all of this is about laying siege to the institutions, to sow distrust and uncertainty about schools because they want to privatize public education. So, and Bannon has said that, this is the way to win elections. It's the fear of the other, so they're using, something that demagogues have used for a long time, otherize people, create fear. But what they have this time that has never happened before is that they're doing it on the heels of a nationwide global pandemic that created great disruption for 2 years. So what they're doing is exploiting the fear and the anxiety of parents all across America, of people across America, about who only want their kids to have a normal, decent life. And instead of everybody joining together in America to get us out of the effects of the pandemic, to, get jobs back and infrastructure built and not only schools reopened, but really kids recovering. Instead of doing that, these right-wing ideologues are just trying to create fear and anxiety and anger, exploiting the fear that parents already have in order to win elections and end public education as we know it. It's unconscionable because they're using politics, creating intense, long-term, harmful, cruel, non-political ramifications.
Yeah, but here's the thing, Randi. And look, I've got 3 kids, 2 still in public school. I have another one that's now graduated and moving on. I know the teachers. We were active in our kids' schooling. We know them. None of the stuff that they're telling us happened. The stuff on
Yes.
CRT wasn't going on. The indoctrination that they're telling us is rampant. Nobody, and in fact, the people who are telling me that it's out there aren't experiencing it with their children. So there's this boogeyman that they've created that nobody is experiencing. And so what is it about us that we seem to believe this nonsense, even though we're not experiencing it? No, there's no
Well,
experiencing it.
but let's just say this, you could see now from the data of what really happened in the Virginia election, and you just put your thumb on it, Rick, which is it wasn't parents that voted against Terry McAuliffe. It was seniors who got really scared about all of this fear mongering that came out in droves against Terry McAuliffe. So this is a base vote strategy on the part of the Republicans. What we have to do is, and you see me as calmly as I can, the good news is this: parents don't buy it. 70 to 80% of parents know this is not what we're doing. We're not teaching, we're not indoctrinating, we're not grooming. We are actually teaching honest history, trying to help our kids recover, trying to deal with immense mental health needs, trying to teach kids knowledge so that they can discern fact from fiction. And most parents know that. What our goal has to be is that elections really matter this year. And hopefully people are going to be voting on these kind of issues for decency, for making sure that we can keep on doing what we're doing to help kids recover and help kids thrive. And that we have to be the aspiration agents against this attempt to, get us all into a terrible rabbit hole that's going to really hurt kids. Imagine if you had a trans kid right now and you were in Texas and you were trying to protect your kid and the lieutenant governor was trying to bring you up on charges because you were protecting your kid. How is that parental rights? Imagine if you're a Jewish parent, son or daughter of a Holocaust survivor, and your district used to teach the book Mouse, which was about genocide. And all of a sudden your district is like, no, we can't teach that book. Why? Why can't we teach that book? Because it has, some one word in it that somebody's uncomfortable with. Well, genocide is pretty uncomfortable. Genocide in Ukraine right now is pretty uncomfortable. And isn't it better to actually teach kids within the safe and welcoming environment of a teacher who understands how to provide knowledge and pull knowledge out of kids, as opposed to seeing genocide on TV in Ukraine?
No, it's easier to put your head in the sand and know it doesn't happen and believe it's not happening. I've actually had people tell me that there's nothing going on over there. It's all computer graphics. It's not actually happening.
Yeah, well, it's the same. It's this notion. And look, we've been very lucky in America, and we in some ways live in a bubble for a long time. This is propaganda.
Yep.
This is misinformation. This is the way in which wars start. This is the way in which hatred starts. So part of what we try to do, this is why they go after educators. What we're trying to do is make sure that, we educate kids, we keep them safe, we keep them welcome, and we help them learn how to think, not what to think, but how to think, and have the tools so they can discern between fact and fiction. That scares the bejesus out of these extremists who don't want kids to know how to think. They don't want kids to empathize with the other, with people who may be different. But that is how America gets better. So it's a race. We are in an existential threat race against not only the effects of the pandemic, but also these right-wing extremists who are trying to exploit people's agitation for their own political purposes. That's why they're book banning. That's where they're going after the teaching of racism, the sexism, the Holocaust. That's why they are trying to silence and put back into the closet people who may be gay or trans.
Yeah, and that's why they're attacking teachers. And I look at this story. NBC News put out a story yesterday about this crackpot playwright David Mamet, who their tweet. Prize-winning playwright claims that teachers are inclined, quote, are inclined to pedophilia and that students are being groomed for sexual abuse while offering no evidence to back up his charges. I'm going, why would you even put this out? Why do we even address crackpots like this? How come we're not mocking idiots like this?
Because it's, because it's the capitalism of the media industry and how many clicks it gets. But think about how repulsive this is, a repulsive, terrible, heinous thing to say about the teaching profession. And this is what the extremists do. They actually say the opposite of who we are and what we represent. We care about kids. You had to see the school that I and Steve Barr and a few others founded this past Monday. This school, a school that we created 13 years ago, we had one of our kids get murdered by a gunman using a ghost gun on Friday afternoon as she left school. Murdered. What did the teachers do? So I saw what Mamet said. What did the teachers do on Monday? And on Saturday, before Monday, they hugged kids. They kept them safe. They listened to them. A kid in this class had died, and their teachers, the other kids' teachers, were there with them every day, every hour on Monday to help them survive this terrible tragedy. And then I saw what Mamet said. It's disgusting. It's denigrative, but it is done politically to create the wedge. Yeah. The way in which we fight it is we win politically. We don't let them create the wedge. We create the community between parents and teachers to help our kids. That's how we win.
Absolutely. You're listening to the Rick Smith Show here with Randi Weingarten, president of the American Federation Teachers, AFT, AFT.org, their website, if you want to check out the work that they do. And you're right, there's so much that has to be done there because of these crackpots and this kind of stuff that just sucks the energy out of the room. The whole thing about the theory of race that's critical, this obscenity. We're not talking about gun violence. We're not talking about poverty. We're not talking about real abuse. We're not talking about any of those things. In fact, today in New York, another shooting on the subway. We're not talking about that stuff. We're talking about nonsense by some crackpot playwright. And that's a real problem for me.
Yeah, no, it is a real problem. But you know something? Today, we've been talking about gun violence in New York City and how to prevent it. And today, part of what I'm doing is supporting teachers who are teaching, supporting, parental engagement, and not letting these crackpots get us down a rabbit hole that they want to talk about instead of actually doing the hard work of helping our kids recover. And that's what our union is trying to do. But no doubt, let's just call it for what it is. They throw out, it's kind of like, when somebody calls fire in a crowded theater, they're trying to create fear. They're trying to create that sense, and you're seeing it more and more. And there's there doesn't seem to be any guardrails by these extremists, or frankly, I don't even call them conservatives, by these political operatives who just want to create this kind of fear.
No, they're just chaos merchants, and their
Yeah,
goal is to spread fear and
yeah,
misinformation solely for, I
exactly.
believe, for their profit. There's no depths to their depravity, and there's no depths to where they'll go to make their aims. And this is
Right.
the fear that I have of where we're at. And I'm hoping you're right. I'm hoping that good people come out and speak out and stand up and fight back. Now, I know you just came back from Poland, and I want to get to that before we go on, because I literally had someone tell me what's going on in Ukraine is not happening. It's all computer generated, and we're being lied to. But I'm telling you, some of the atrocities that I'm seeing on social media, and as the president said, it's a genocide going on over there. I'm sure that you've got stories to share. I wanted to hear how your trip went and what you came across while you were in Poland.
Well, when you look in children's eyes and you hear their stories, you know that what Russia is doing and Putin is doing in particular is genocide. It's barbaric. And what's happened is, you have, just like Trump did before, you have Russian propaganda in the United States that people just want to believe. And it is this kind of level of misinformation that's vile. We heard, we saw a lot of kids while we were in Poland, a lot of Ukrainian kids, a lot of moms, because the dads are back fighting. And we heard their stories about, the living a regular life until the middle of February, and then their whole worlds have been shattered. There are more kids who have been refugees in Poland from Ukraine than there are in the entire Los Angeles school system. So if nothing was happening there, why would all these people be leaving their homes? 4 million people leaving their homes, 2.5 million leaving through Poland alone. And so, part of what we were trying to do is, was just bear witness to what was going on, but also to bring toys and books and, things that would make kids smile for a minute or so. But I'm going to leave you with, one of the most impressive things to me, which was that the Poles, who have been victims of the Soviet Union, who are victims of Nazi atrocities, they have actually stood up for the Ukrainians. Everywhere you go in Warsaw, you see Ukrainian flags, you see signs for Ukraine, go Slava Ukraini, and all sorts of other kinds of sayings to kind of lift the spirits and the solidarity with Ukrainians. These are people, generations, that were victimized by others. And instead of victimizing the victims, they have embraced the victims. I'm sure that Putin wanted people to leave Ukraine in this kind of way to destabilize the rest of Eastern and Central Europe. That hasn't happened. What has happened, at least right now, is that the Ukrainians are fighting it every way they can to have their democracy back, to have their sovereignty back. And these kids who are the victims of this war, these kids are being embraced by the Poles in a way that's really, really beautiful.
Yeah.
One kid said to me, he stood up. I was in a classroom with him and with many of his peers. They're probably about 15, 16, 17 years old. And he says to me, please tell American children or students that I had what they have a month ago. Please tell them to be grateful for what they have. If that doesn't give you the kind of chills to march on and do what we need to do to save our democracy And to save our decency, I don't know what does.
Yeah, I think the lesson in that is right there. If there is something to be taken from it, it's that right there. Randi, I appreciate the time. I appreciate you taking a little time and sharing your story with us. I look forward to talking to you again.
Thanks, Rick. Take care.
Thanks so much. Randi Weingarten, president of the American Federation of Teachers, AFT.org, the website. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Quick break. Right back after this. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.